Go. Taste of the song Queen of Hearts from the new album from Canadian hardcore band Effed Up. The Toronto-based sextet launched a decade ago with a series of 7-inch singles, followed by a full-length disc, Hidden Life. Their 2008 album, as you may know, Chemistry of Common Life, won the prestigious Polaris Music Prize for Canadian Album of the Year, as chosen by critics from across the land. That win surprised some, including the band themselves, because Effed Up don't conform to expectations exactly. They're a band that love to push the boundaries of music, even their chosen genre, punk, something evident in their third, new full-length record, David Comes to Life, a 78-minute 4-act rock opera released earlier this month. It centers on a tragic love affair between a worker at a light bulb factory and a lefty political activist. It's set in a fictional English town called Beardsdale Spa during the Thatcher administration in the 70s. The song we just heard recalls the first meeting between star-crossed lovers David and Veronica. The Washington Post calls the new album a behemoth on multiple levels, thrilling. Buzzgrinder says superb from front to back, and Pitchfork notes hooks piled on top of hooks. In fact, many are calling this rock opera Effed Up's most ambitious and accomplished album to date, a culmination of their creative efforts. So it's either appropriate or ironic that lead singer Damian Abraham has been dropping hints that after a decade together, this album could represent the happy end of the road for Effed Up. We'll ask him about that. David Comes to Life recently came to life. It was released on June 7th, and Damian Abraham, a.k.a. Pink Eyes, and Sandy Miranda, a.k.a. Mustard Gas, join me now in Studio Q. Hello, you two.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
And by the way, the rest of the band is here.
They are. They're here to be the overlords of the facts.
The overlords of the facts, and they're correcting the Wikipedia entries.
They are. They're going to be updating it.
And they're also you're going to play for us at
yes,
the end of this interview. So thank you for that. I understand that. First of all, this is a really accomplished record. Congrats, you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
much. The kudos it's getting are well deserved. The idea for this album, if I got this right, had been brewing for several years, like since 2006. So, how did the concept, which you said started as a joke or a fallback project, become a viable thing in your minds?
I think after Chemistry of Common Life, after winning the Polaris Prize, coming out with all this praise that it received, there was no way we could live up to it. We were just kind of convinced that there was no way we could do sort of another straightforward record and have anyone, because there was just an insurmountable amount of praise put on that record that I was very flattered by, but it was hard to live up to. So with this record, we had kind of been joking.
You didn't think you could win the Oscar after doing
no,
Forrest Gump, win for Philadelphia? You
exactly.
couldn't be Tom Hanks?
No, I couldn't. I am no Tom Hanks.
Right.
I have the same hairline, though, I bet. But even Tom Hanks realized that, Forrest Gump was one thing, and then the next year Philadelphia, or was it the other way around?
I can't remember
anyway,
which way it was.
And
yeah.
he realized you had to do a totally different thing, and that's what I think we hit with this. We had this idea of doing this rock opera around the character of David, Iliad, for a long time, in sort of like the ether, and we had been joking about it, and then it just hit a point where we're like, there's really no other way to go but try this.
And Sandy, I mean, you guys have this history of transcending music genres and classifications, and you're known for pushing the boundaries of hardcore tradition. Obviously, this latest record is no exception. Was making a rock opera a conscious choice to push the envelope once again?
I think it was, but I should say, though, first that when Mike first talked about the idea, I didn't really buy it. I didn't think that it would actually happen, but here we are, years later, and it's kind of in front of us. I'm not sure if it was really conscious. Really, the album is just 18 songs that were eventually linked together through lyrical content. But when we were writing the record in the studio, it wasn't like a conscious concept album that we were aiming for.
It wasn't musically. There wasn't an imperative that everything has to fit into this rock opera that we're all.
Well, it was more actually written. Actually, funnily, the script was actually written around the music. The music was written first, and the music was laid out in such a way that there almost is natural peaks and valleys to the way the songs were written. So when it came time to write the script, when Josh, Mike, and I were in the Dufferin Mall, kind of, if you obviously people not from Toronto don't know the Dufferin Mall, not the best mall in Toronto.
Yeah. But this is like, I've read this in a couple of interviews. This is becoming the stuff of myth. So you guys in a food court in a mall, right?
Yeah.
This is your MO. This is where you guys get creative.
It's neutral territory. None of us wanted to do it at each other's house. Right. So we're like, okay, where's, key geographically to all of us. And,
right.
And, Fortunately or unfortunately, depending how you look at it, the Dufferin Mall is geographically center for all of us. So it was a prime location. And also, the thing is, it's loud enough that you kind of get, it almost becomes a white noise in the mall. And in coffee shop, I think we'd get distracted.
But back to this question of so Mike has this idea about a rock opera. I mean, first of all, rock opera. I always think of Tommy. It sort of defined what a rock opera was. The Who's Tommy. So, was that what you had in mind when he says rock opera to you? Is that what you were thinking of? And then how do you go about creating something like that?
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought about like Hedwig and the Angry Itch, and I don't know. I'm not really a fan of theater, especially music theater, but it kind of came together. I don't know. Like I'm curious to see in 5 to 10 years from now if this will actually make it on the stage.
I'd love to see. I think there's also this weird tradition in punk rock of the concept record. There's the Sham '69 second LP was a rock opera, Clash, Sandinista. I'm not naming the best examples here, am I? But
it's not quite a rock opera.
No, but it's a concept record, I should say.
Concept record. Yeah, okay.
So there's almost like this, Integrity, Season the Size of Days, and it goes all the way. Tyson Dronicus last year. So this is kind of like tradition running throughout of this, the idea of tackling a concept record because it seems so much the antithesis of what punk rock is, or sort of like the capital P punk rock is, in quotation marks.
How did the story of David and Veronica come about?
It was really the three of us sitting there and being like, well, it has to be a love story. Mike was fairly resolute in his decision that it was going to be a love story.
Because you're romantics?
Well, I think it's because we've never done romance. Like I've written love songs before for the band, but they've always been like buried as B-sides on the back of 7 inches and stuff.
Right. And why is that?
Once again,
there's an anti-love ethos.
Yeah,
hardcore.
I can name on one hand the great hardcore love songs of our time, and I use "great" very loosely when I say that. There's "Trust" by 7 Seconds, and "Floor Punch" has one. Anyway, these are not great. These are not like "Je t'aime" or anything like that. We're not dealing with the great love songs of our time. So, I think naturally we're kind of scared off from tackling a love song in hardcore. There's, believe me, and I love my voice as much as the next person, but someone barking love lyrics at you doesn't always seem the most romantic.
So ever the contrarians. You think, okay, well then let's do what we're not supposed to do and write a love story about David and Veronica.
Well, because the only thing you can do in a band is like so much of a band, and obviously this as well, is driving to a venue, sitting in the back room, sound checking, sitting back in the back room, waiting to play, hanging out for a little bit, then getting in a car and driving again and sleeping and driving. Right. So it's so much repetition that the only way, and even recording, you go and do the same things over and over again. So the only way to keep it interesting is by trying things that you're not supposed to do or things that, just seem ridiculous. And that's how I think you keep yourself excited about it.
Do you, as the singer, do you? Both of you. I mean, did writing lyrics for characters allow you to express yourself first of all in new ways, and then when you're actually singing the parts, is it more liberating because you're singing about or as characters as opposed to yourself?
Well, I think for both Mike and I, because we wrote the lyrics, I think both of us hid behind the characters very well. I'm sure both of us could pinpoint each lyric and which failed relationship that lyric came from.
Yeah, you've talked about, interestingly, that this is the most personal record.
Definitely the most personal record I've ever been involved in writing, because it is, hiding behind a character, it's a lot easier to kind of lay it all out on the line. And there's also unflattering characters in the story, which I definitely have unflattering parts of my personality, and those characters are definitely displaying that. So I think live, it's almost like you can reach to a different place than you can when you're singing. Normally we'd have songs about the fallacy of the patriarchal nation state, like on the last record we had a song about that. And so you can sing about that with conviction and passion, but not in the same way you can sing about the time in the 8th grade when you had a huge crush on this person in your class and it was not reciprocated and that was your first heartbreak.